Hey, hey, hey! How's everyone doing today? You're watching the Tommy Temper Show. I'm coming to you from Alberta, Canada. And today is going to be a big day. Maybe in the House of Commons, we might actually call an election here in Canada. I don't know. Everyone is kind of waiting with bated breath. And yeah, we've got some action happening right now in the House of Commons. So let's slide over there to see what's actually happening. Stand by. And we'll just head over there. This is what's happening in the House of Commons right now. Let's go to it live.
Corner store, founded in 1974 by André Desroches, who also founded the Business People's Association in Boucherville. This family business, over the years, became a true institution in Boucherville. La Ressource is much more than a
and we'll just watch
the
House of Commons
where
here.
You get
see what's
milk
happening
or
today.
a bag of chips or some beer. 25 years ago, they were groundbreakers in stocking their shelves with terroir products, local products, and microbreweries products. So going into there is like going into Alibaba's cave. You can choose beers there like you would choose wine at the liquor store. And with Frédéric Desroches, La Ressource is now in its third generation of owners, and it is as involved and committed to the community as it was under his grandfather. Congratulations on 50 years, and long live La Ressource.
The only thing that I've read in recent memory is a celebratory
Michelle,
post
good
from
to
a
see you,
Ford
man.
MPP celebrating tearing out bike lanes in the city of Toronto by saying that it's going to make it safer for people on bikes. Where's the data? Really? Let's be clear. Bike lanes save lives. If someone has a problem with their design or their location, take it to our mayor or city councillors. That's why we elect them.
You know what the problem with bike lanes is that they take a road and they eliminate all of the parking on that road. Like even on both sides, I see them over here. They took one where they eliminated parking on both sides, put in a big bike lane, whole bunch of concrete and everything. Big expense, wasted a whole bunch of money on it.
It's going to cost taxpayers. It's going to take away an affordable way to get around our city, and it's going to add to traffic. How's that for a lump of coal for the holidays? Bah humbug. So let's stand up for the City of Toronto. Let's stand up for charter cities.
Lump of coal.
The honourable member from Miramichi Grand Lake.
I'm the proud nephew of Tony Sturgeon. Tony's recent passing brings a deep sadness to our family, along with major change. Tony leaves behind the love of his life, Aunt Christy, and daughters Mandy and Kyla. Our family will be forever grateful that Tony found someone as wonderful as Christy to share his life with. Tony's love for Christy and his daughters was always evident in our family. He was deeply proud of both daughters and was always excited to spend time with his grandchildren. Toronto Maple Leaf fans are loyal for obvious reasons. We are all long-suffering, but few were as loyal as my Uncle Tony. We shared this passion, and it returned every fall, along with the common sorrow in the spring. Tony leaves behind a great legacy of two beautiful daughters, their children and families, a lifetime of good humor, and memories will hold close forever. We will always miss you, Uncle Tony.
The honourable member for London North Centre.
Mr. Speaker, more than 3,000 Canadians live with ALS. One is a constituent. Matthew Brown's
we're just watching
over the years has
the House of
inspired me to
Commons.
do
It's
more.
like question
Mr.
period.
Speaker, recently,
where
just a
people
few
get
days
to,
ago, in fact, on Parliament Hill,
parliamentarians
we
get to
saw
stand up
ALS
and
Action Canada
give their 2
organize
bits
an
worth.
effort that brought together Canadians living with ALS.
We may hear
their
some
family members,
interesting
their
ones
supporters.
here relating
In fact,
to
supporters that
potential
include members of the
election.
NHL alumni.
So
In
pay attention.
support
Maybe. Good to
specifically
see you.
of Mark Curtin. Mark Curtin is a former
Red
Toronto
in there,
Maple Leaf,
Michelle.
played for the
Michelle.
Detroit Red Wings, the Vancouver Canucks. He had a very
Big
good
ups
NHL
to everyone.
career,
D, hey, good to
and
see
he
you.
shared with us his
Happy
efforts to create
Thanksgiving.
the ALS
Absolutely. If you live in the
Superfund,
United States.
an effort that in
Happy
less than 1 year
Thanksgiving
has
to
generated
all of
more than
our
$1
American
million
friends.
in support of awareness and for research. It's efforts like that that inspire us, across party lines in fact, As chair of
Absolutely.
the ALS All-Party Caucus, I want to do more, and I know members in all parties feel that way. We will continue to advocate for people like Matthew, for people like Mark, for the 3,000 plus Canadians living with ALS, constituents,
Hang on, I
Canadians.
just want
we're
to
with
take
them.
that
Thank you very much.
Tommy Tremper off of there. Hang on.
The honourable member for Alfred Pallon. Mr. Speaker, with the holidays fast approaching, our government is taking decisive action so Canadians can celebrate with family and friends without having to worry about the high costs of the holiday season. We're putting more money back into the pockets of Canadians with the new GST exemption.
Hey, thanks a lot for the sub.
Starting December 14th, children's
It's Dave.
clothing and toys, restaurant meals,
Really good to
alcoholic
see you.
beverages, Christmas trees, and much more will be GST exempt. This will help my constituents of Alfred Pallon and all
OJ.
Canadians
Big ups.
enjoy the holiday festivities and support local businesses and keep more of their hard-earned money. Will the Leader of the Opposition cut his caucus some slack so they can put the needs of
Aggie.
their communities ahead of
Good to
his
see you.
political ambitions by supporting this plan which helps local businesses and families? Or will he continue to silence them and
KRWD.
stand in the way of
Hey, big
progress
ups.
at every turn?
The honourable member from Langley
Dave, the pickup
Aldergrove.
artist.
After 9
Good to see
years
ya.
of this NDP Liberal government, our once safe towns and cities are now rife with crime and chaos thanks
Piccolina.
to this Liberal
Big
Prime
ups.
Minister's radical catch-and-relief bail policies that allow dangerous people to stay on our streets. Our worsening public record, safety record has been made evident by a recent Fraser Institute study comparing our crime stats to the USA. Well, the numbers are in. Violent crime is up in Canada and now exceeding
Crime is
the
up,
United
yeah,
States
absolutely.
by 14%. And then there's property crime, also exceeding the
Property
USA by a
crime,
shocking
yeah.
27%.
People are breaking into your
And all of
garages,
this is under
houses
the
all
watch
over
of
the
this
place.
Prime Minister, nothing to be proud of. You know, Mr. Speaker, we used to be
all
proud
these people
of our
that are
public
running
safety
around,
record. We used to
the drug
think of it
addicts
as
that are
one of our
breaking in.
distinguishing features, something that was a source of national pride. Well, no more. Canadians deserve to feel safe in their
Something happened
communities.
to our society.
It's time for a common sense conservative government that is going to focus on public safety and bring back
They lost
safe
common
streets.
sense.
Thank
That's
you.
what happened. I've been saying that all along. The Liberals, the
The honourable
Democrats,
member
whatever,
from Ottawa
they've
Centre.
lost their minds.
Speaker, I rise today to remember Robert Smythe, a true pillar of Centretown who passed away on November 15th. For over 50 years, Robert dedicated his life to preserving the character and history of our community. As the founding editor of the Centretown Buzz, Robert captured the stories and struggles of with passion and care. He shared downtown Ottawa's history and architecture in a way that brought it to life, championing the preservation of not just heritage buildings, but also the modernist and brutalist structures that reflect our city's evolution. He was a tireless advocate for affordable housing, a community builder, and a passionate pedestrian who knew every corner of Centretown. His memory will forever echo through downtown's streets, its cherished buildings, and people's stories that define our community. May Robert rest in peace. Thank you.
The honourable member from Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years, the NDP Liberals are not worth the cost. Taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time is up. And now they've broken Canada's immigration system. Conservatives have learned there are over 3 million people in Canada that need to leave by December of next year, and the government does not have a plan.
That's
When
right.
we pressed the minister on this at committee, he simply shrugged his shoulders and said he expected people to leave voluntarily. At the same time, he also expects asylum claimants to grow. He's talking out of both sides of his mouth. The facts are, student demonstrators have said they will not leave voluntarily, and asylum claims are growing. But
Wow.
the NDP Liberal government hopes this problem will just go away. Well, hope is not a management plan. The truth is, the NDP Liberals have no
Rachel's
plan
ghost.
to ensure
Good to
these
see
3
ya.
million temporary residents actually leave
In the
Canada.
house?
They don't have a way
If
to
anyone wants to
real estate
drop a
left.
link in
They
my
won't
chat,
even prevent
just
them
type
from
the word
staying.
link.
They won't stop them
And
from
my
claiming
bot will
asylum.
drop your link.
They won't even control our borders.
Good to see you, though.
Simply
in
put, the
chat.
NDP Liberals
Rachel's
broke
Ghost.
our immigration system
Check out her
and don't
channel.
know how to fix it. Mr. Speaker, where is the plan?
Where's the plan from the so-called NDP
The honourable
Liberals?
member
If
from
you listen
Brandon
to him.
Souris.
Speaker, more and more Canadians are realizing the true role of the NDP leader and their entire caucus in keeping the Liberal government in power and shielding them from an election. Even after President Trump's unjustified threat of a 25% tariff on Canada's already fragile economy, the NDP Liberal coalition continues to defend their harmful carbon tax, a tax that costs the average person in Manitoba $693 and over $900 in some other provinces. No matter what the NDP Liberals say, the independent parliamentary budget officer made it clear the carbon tax makes most Canadians poorer. Unfortunately, the NDP leader doesn't care. Instead of voting with Conservatives to express non-confidence in this government and trigger an election, he is focused on securing his pension, and is prepared to quadruple the carbon tax.
Whoa.
It's time to let Canadians choose a strong prime minister.
Like 61 cents a liter. That's like almost $2.50 a gallon on tax. Just plain tax for the carbon tax. Not to mention the other taxes that are on fuel. Unbelievable, this government.
Mr. Speaker, our government knows Canadians work hard, that many are still feeling just barely more comfortable with their finances. That's why last week we introduced the new Working Canadians Rebate, a tax-free payment of $250 that will go directly to more than 18 million Canadians. If you worked in 2023 and earned $250,000, this rebate is for you. Whether it's to help pay bills, buy groceries, or save for the future, this is real support for Canadians who work hard every day to meet their needs and their families. This rebate is designed to recognize the efforts of Canadians, to give them a helping hand when they need it most.
Glitching like
in
crazy.
addition to the tax
Antifa's got something to do with this, I'm
essentials
sure.
like grocery, snacks, and children's clothing, our government is providing Canadians with significant savings and real relief at the checkout.
In the House there, another celebrity, Phil Primo
MPs will support this
from Edmonton. Good freedom fighter out of Edmonton. Yeah, you can catch him on Facebook.
Water Warriors, Smile Yeg, Bear Claw, Beaver Hills House, Hope Mission, and Reach Edmonton. These are the names of the frontline organizations in Edmonton helping our neighbors survive. Houselessness is a crisis in Edmonton. Over the past few weeks, 4 people have already frozen to death. Things are so bad.
In the bus shelters. Just in the bus shelters he's talking about.
Lost a limb due to frostbite. The majority of these are Indigenous.
People are dying.
These statistics, Mr. Speaker, put the work of Edmonton's local organizations into focus. Compassionate, understanding care, supportive housing for those who need it most, wraparound services that go far beyond just putting a roof over people's heads. But these
share this feed out
need help.
to a couple of groups that you know.
To work with provincial and municipal partners to ensure that the people who support Edmonton's most vulnerable have the resources they need. Together, Mr. Speaker, we can end poverty and we can end houselessness.
It's bad in Edmonton if you drive around. There's tents all over the place. And it's 20 below.
Mr. Speaker, the University of Quebec in Montreal has just pulled off a masterstroke by appointing Pauline Marois as Chancellor, another historic first for the woman who was the first woman to be elected Premier of Quebec. Of all her impressive service for Quebec, Ms. Marois says what she loved best was being Minister of Education, because that's where she could make the biggest difference. And that she did. By creating the network of public childcare centers, she made a major contribution to Quebec women achieving one of the highest employment rates in the world.
Give us a thumbs up if you could, please.
UQAM is facing new challenges with a role to play in revitalizing the Latin Quarter and ambitions for a faculty of health sciences. She who describes education as a pillar for any nation wishing to grow is the right person in the right place. Bravo, UQAM. Bravo, Ms. Marois. And long live the Chancellor.
The honourable member for Flamborough-Glanbrook.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of these Liberals, life has never been so unaffordable. Now with Canadians struggling and his party languishing in the polls, the Prime Minister comes up with this 2-month temporary tax trick. Even his own MPs
mods are mods, Queenie, you know that.
The Liberal member for Hamilton East Stony Creek called the
nothing
plan
changes. Same old, same old.
And revealed that he's been threatened with consequences for speaking out. He told the Toronto Star, quote, "It says a lot about our government is at this point right now, and it says a lot about some of the shackles that have been put around MPs, unquote.
Hey, bullets.
The Prime Minister silences anyone who dares to disagree. Canadians deserve better than Liberal hypocrisy. It's a two-month tax trick today to distract from their plan to quadruple the carbon tax.
Yeah,
no
we don't need
the
that.
Liberal MP for Hamilton East Stony Creek calls this plan incomprehensible. Common sense conservatives
It's stupid.
will axe
We need
the
to get
tax
rid of that
for
carbon
everyone,
tax.
everywhere, for good.
Axe the tax. Hey, Dashing Grandma, Dee, Betty White,
Raindrops on roses and
Dory.
whispers on kittens, children's scarves and warm woolen mittens, books and newspapers tied with strings. These are a few of my favorite things.
Aw.
Restaurant meals and crisp apple strudels, snacks and candy and schnitzel with noodles, toys and board games and the joy that they bring. These are a few of my favorite things. And these things will be exempted from GST starting December 14th. Mr.
Isn't that
Speaker.
nice?
This
A
tax
little
break will give
Christmas
Canadians
gift from the
more money in their
Liberals.
pockets during the holidays, a time when the costs go up for many families. When the dog bites, when the CPC
2-month
stings, I simply
hiatus.
remember my favorite things, and soon will be exempt from GST. The good news for Canadians, Mr. Speaker, I encourage members opposite to vote in favor of this tax break and let Canadians have more of their hard-earned money.
We don't want a 2-month tax break. We want a axe the carbon tax for good. It's a huge tax, affects everyone. Axe that tax. Not your stupid 2-month hiatus for Christmas. Bullshit.
The Prime Minister is weak, and he's lost control of our borders.
Absolutely.
He opened Roxham Road, and he kept it open a year
That's right.
after the Americans offered to close it.
With the liberal openness.
He invited at least 700 foreign students by implicitly promising that they would be able to stay here permanently and who will now have to leave. And he lost 500,000 people. What is his plan to reestablish order at the borders and prevent American tariffs?
Prevent the 25% tariff.
And procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As our colleague knows very well, the relationship with the United States is the most important relationship that we have with any other country.
Absolutely.
When it comes to security and when it comes to the economy. We work very well with the Americans, and we have for many years now, for many decades. And he also knows very well that 18 months ago, we signed a new third-party agreement, which the United States have celebrated since then, and which are going to bring back to the attention of our colleague.
Well, which obviously Trump wants to break.
Since the Prime Minister enjoys invading provincial jurisdiction, he's lost control of his own jurisdiction.
Alberta.
He is incompetent when it comes to federal jurisdiction, like borders. It's the most important federal jurisdiction. In fact, now the provincial premiers have lost confidence in this Prime Minister.
That's right.
The Premier of Quebec is sending Quebec's provincial police force to defend the borders. Alberta's Premier is doing the same.
Yep.
Ontario's Premier is saying exactly the same things. How can we trust this Prime Minister?
We cannot. That's the problem.
The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Our colleague is talking about trust and jurisdiction. I answered this question a couple of minutes ago. If there's something that he can control, Mr. Speaker, it's he could ask for his security clearance so that he could protect his own caucus. He's not able to protect himself and his own caucus.
Asking
and
for the security
that's an
clearance.
issue of trust, Mr. Speaker.
Show us the details.
The trust of parliaments and the trust of Canadians depends on the ability of the leader of the official opposition to control his agenda and to ask for a security clearance.
Show us the bad guys. Show the whole world the bad guys, not just somebody with a security
this week,
clearance.
Prime Minister has lost control. He's lost control of immigration, lost control of our borders. And now we're facing massive
This is going to be our
threats
new
our
Prime
economy.
Minister.
Right now, there are as
Cadamus.
many as 500,000 people here illegally.
Like it or not,
there are
just like in the States,
700,000
they got
students
Trump.
who came here with the implicit promise they'd be able to
You
stay
might not
forever.
like him.
And now they're being told they have to leave with the temptation that they might head
But he's our
south
man.
for the much stronger economy than we have here, which would provoke a massive retaliatory tariff. So what's the plan? to reverse all the damage the Prime Minister's done.
There is no plan.
The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Refugees.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hundreds of thousands of people come to this country every year and then leave. They're called tourists. Hundreds of thousands of people come here as temporary residents and then they leave. Some become permanent residents. There is a plan to achieve that. They will migrate into permanent residency, but not all can stay here. And when they refuse to do so,
now you have a whole
they will
bunch
be
of people
removed.
with
But you
the
can't make this up,
anticipation
Mr.
of
Speaker.
staying here
What the member opposite, the leader
that
of
you're
the
not going to
opposition
renew
is
their
doing,
visa.
the member of Edmonton
Normally
Millwoods,
you
is
would
going
renew
around to
their
these people,
visa and then
pandering
keep
to
on
them,
until they get
promising
citizenship.
them to have visas and promising not to deport them. That's deport them.
Now,
That's
when
highly
you cut their visa,
irresponsible, and
they're
it's
going to
incompettent.
probably stay illegally. That's the problem. When you have almost 500,000.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, that member hallucinates almost as badly as his weak leader, who refuses to stand and answer for his own border failures. Let's look at his record. He opened Roxham Road. He kept it open for a year longer than the Americans required. He put out a tweet saying, "Welcome to Canada," inviting people to come here illegally. According to that minister's department, there are 500,000 people here illegally, all of whom could be tempted to go south of the border, provoking a massive retaliatory response. So once again, what's the plan to fix what he broke?
The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Refugees.
Speaker, we'll tweet out the video of him pandering to people, entertaining false hope, promising visas to everyone, promising they won't get deported. That's highly incompetent. Worse than that, Mr. Speaker, is he's refusing to get his security clearance. That is irresponsible for any purported leader of this country, any responsible person in politics. He needs to grow a pair, get the briefing.
Grow a pair, coming from the Liberals. Maybe Trudeau needs to grow a pair. That's funny. It's like, the worst guy to say grow a pair would be a Liberal. Trudeau's buddy. I wonder how well he knows Trudeau. Speaking of that. Oh my gosh. It's got everyone in the house there. They have to mute. You have to mute because the house has gone to hell in a handbag. Let's see what happens here. Okay, this House of Commons coming to you from Canada.
There is a
bullshit as usual. Needs to grow a pair.
There is a large flexibility that the Speaker gives, of course, to the language that's used in here. But I think that might be beyond the border. I'm going to ask the Honourable Minister if he could just
see, Queenie? Queenie, you go overboard too. No pedo, no grow ball, no grow balls.
Those words on a day like this, I would say he's all flannel and no axe.
He's all flaccid, no action.
The Honourable Leader of the
Opposition. Did he say flaccid?
Speaker, once again shows the erratic, out of control government we have.
It's like homosexual innuendos in the House. Oh my God.
Questions. His minister is losing control of his words and his mind.
I can say it here. They can't say it there.
It is falling to pieces. The Prime Minister has lost control of the border.
The Liberals
lost
have
control
lost
of
it.
immigration.
Lost
control of our finances.
They're a bunch of
and
assholes.
Lost
They've
control
done
of
a
his
bad
caucus,
job.
who are saying that they've been intimidated into voting in favor of his tiny tax trick. He's lost control, but he's holding on to power.
Exactly. He's holding on to power, and he doesn't want to have a vote right now. He wants to hold on until
Mr. Speaker, I don't know what the member
whatever an election comes.
On this side of the House,
2025.
we can have conversations,
It's
we
the
can
Liberals.
have debates, and we don't get shut down from speaking like the members opposite, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, let's talk about today. We are moving forward with a GST cut for every single Canadian.
We don't want that. The average Canadian doesn't want a 2-month cut.
Cuts, Mr.
Give us a major thing, something major.
No walk. He's not
a
there
little.
for Canadians on this side
Here,
of the House.
we'll dangle a 250 bucks in front of your nose for a vote. You're not going to get her vote. You're not going to get the average Canadian's vote. We all know what's going on. You know, only a fool that watches CBC would go, "Oh yeah,
order,
good, 250. I'll vote for you."
Member for La Prairie. For weeks now, the Bloc Québécois has been asking the Liberals to increase resources at the borders. Weeks that they've just come back with the condescension that they're so well known for, that they have a plan. But listen, yesterday the Prime Minister announced to his colleagues, the premiers, that he was going to do what the Bloc has been suggesting for a week now, increase resources at the border. You know, up to last night, there was no plan and there were no resources at the border. So why do the Liberals always have to wake up at the last possible minute?
Wow. 55 people talk about being shadow banned.
Service and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our colleague knows very well that the relationship with the United States is the most important relationship that we have when it comes to security, economics, and the border. And that's why for many decades now we've worked well and actively with the Americans, and we've done that in recent years, particularly under Mr. Trump's administration. Mr. Trudeau, rather, the Prime Minister, had an excellent meeting yesterday with the premiers. And it's on the basis of ongoing collaboration that we will deal with the issues raised in that conversation. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Well, better late than never, the Liberals have finally realized they need to increase resources at the border, but they're still unable to tell us exactly when, how much, and how. And that's really serious because in just a couple of months, Donald Trump is going to impose tariffs on our entire economy. They only have 2 months left to fix the leaky border. And until last night, they continued to claim they didn't think there was a problem. Now that they've finally seen the light, can they please explain
we need to
what
keep
the
the drugs
details
out
of
of
their
Canada
plan
too.
are?
However, they're getting into Canada. The fentanyl from China or wherever it's coming from, Mexico.
Global Affairs.
Through the
U.S. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you know, and Canadians know, borders are very important, and it's in the interest of the Americans that they be protected. It's the interest of Canadians that they protected. And that's why we are working together on this question. I had a conversation with Premier Legault this morning, and I also spoke with Quebec's International Relations Minister. I've also had the opportunity to speak with a number of influential Republican and Democrat senators in the United States who are all allies so that we can work together to make sure that our two countries are protected. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, as we see every Christmas when things get going again, the Liberals woke up just the other day and said, hey, we're going to send out $250 checks. But the NDP noted that they forgot a lot of people, seniors, persons with disabilities, people who aren't able to work.
A lot of people aren't going to get a check.
The Liberals panicked, and so they pushed that measure back. But, you know, the real question here is, are they going to fix their measure so that they can help people who really need it? The Honourable
drop your link by typing the word link.
You know, today is a great day, Mr. Speaker,
link,
because we are going to be voting with the support of the NDP for a tax holiday for all Canadians, including seniors.
Check out Rachel's channel, everyone.
Because on the other side of the House, what we're seeing is a Grinch who's going to stay and who doesn't want to vote for a tax holiday. So I'd like to thank the NDP because they have a heart like we do for all Canadians, but we're going to continue working with them to make sure that we support all Canadians across the country, Mr. Speaker.
And other interesting stuff. Great channel there, Rachel.
Victoria. But they're not supporting all Canadians. The Liberals are letting Canadians down. Almost everyone is cutting back. Life is expensive, and that is especially true for students, seniors, and people with disabilities. And the Liberals' plan? Excluding them from the $250 rebate. Even the Liberals' own MPs
the
think
people
this
that need
is
the
absurd.
rebate
And the Conservatives, they
are not
want to
going to get
give
it.
tax breaks to billionaires like Galen Weston, but won't give a tax break to everyday Canadians. When the Conservatives show you who they are, believe them. So will the Liberals fix their botched rebate, yes or no?
Here, here. The Honourable Minister for Tourism and Economic Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question.
Let's force an election today.
We introduced for the first time a Canada disability benefit. You know, my brother has a disability. Ours is the first government that has put in place direct help for people with a physical disability. Mr. Speaker, the $250 check that we're going to send out, it's a check that we want to send out to workers. And coming from a party that has always claimed to stand up for workers, it seems a bit ironic that they're against it. That having been said, we think that 1 million seniors who work will have access to that check, and also persons with disabilities
I'll
who
be right back.
are
Somebody
working,
just
Mr.
delivered
Speaker.
something to my door. So stand by.
Then I have the honourable member from Thornhill.
After doubling the cost of housing, adding an inflationary carbon tax to everything that Canadians buy, and giving us the highest levels of debt in the G7, the Prime Minister's plan is a temporary, tiny 2-month tax trick. But not even small businesses are fooled. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business says that only 4% of small businesses expect a sales boost because of the latest last-ditch effort for the Prime Minister to save his own job. If he's so sure about his plan, why doesn't he call a carbon tax election and let Canadians decide?
Right. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
With respect, the member ought to look at what the Retail Council of Canada has said on the matter, what Restaurants Canada has said on the matter as well, Mr. Speaker. Small business owners in my community across the country will benefit as a result of this tax cut. It's exactly what it is, a tax cut for workers, a tax cut for families. It's also surprising, Mr. Speaker, and I just heard the name. They talked about Aaron O'Toole. That's exactly right. He put this initiative on the table in the summer of 21. We're supporting it now. You know who else supported it? The Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Speaker. He reposted a tweet from Aaron O'Toole at that time, but doesn't want to support it now, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, this isn't a tax cut. It's a distraction before a much, much bigger permanent tax hike. Even his own Liberal MPs are now opposing this. The member from Hamilton East Stony Creek says that he was threatened with, quote, consequences if he voted against it. Rather than threatening his own MPs, muzzling them like he's accused others of doing, we have a weakened Prime Minister terrified of facing Canadians. So if he's so sure about his own leadership, if he's so sure about his own plan, why won't he allow his own MPs to have a free vote on this one today?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Workers going for groceries, Mr. Speaker, who want to eat out, who want to buy gifts during Christmas, Mr. Speaker. That's who's on our mind, Mr. Speaker. Families who want to buy diapers for their kids, who want to buy
the Liberals.
clothes.
Okay, this is what the Liberals are doing. They're trying to jerk at the
car seats are expensive. There's a
hearts
tax savings on that too, Mr.
of
Speaker.
Canadians.
The Leader of the Opposition
It's
supported this
Christmas.
initiative in 2021,
We'll
but
give
doesn't
you
want
some
to
money
now because it's a
back
Liberal initiative.
for
Will the
Christmas.
real Pierre Poilievre stand up in this House of
You
Commons?
know, it's like they're tugging at our hearts. Are you falling for it?
The honourable member from Calgary, Forest Lawn. Sorry, I did not hear the honourable member, and I'm going to ask members to, if members were able to hold their
Canada
voices
RV.
unless,
Always in those
recognized
political
by the
channels.
speaker, it'd be easier for the speaker
Good to see you.
hear a statement. The honourable member apparently had mentioned the name of another honourable member. I'll ask the honourable member to just rise and use the name of.
It's an honest mistake, Mr. Speaker. I withdraw.
The honourable member from Calgary, Forest Lawn.
Turning temporary 2-month tax tricks won't save this desperate Prime Minister. After doubling housing costs, doubling the national debt, doubling food bank usage, now he's blaming Canadians for not feeling the vibe of this pricey gimmick. Now he's even threatening his own Liberal MP from Hamilton East Stony Creek for not supporting this vote-buying scheme. Instead of threatening MPs to take cents off Skittles, call a carbon tax election now so common-sense Conservatives can axe the tax for good.
That's right. That's way better than the little Christmas gift.
People, I know the Leader of the Opposition knows a thing or two about threatening his own MPs, because if they don't speak in 3-word slogans, we never hear from them again. But, Mr. Speaker, what I can say is that on this side of the House, we are excited to deliver a tax cut for Canadians. And for the mom who has to buy diapers and groceries and a car seat, this is meaningful for her, Mr. Speaker. Who it's not meaningful for is the Leader of the Opposition, because when it comes to supporting everyday Canadians, he would rather rather support himself than give them a break over the holidays.
All
That's
gibberish.
so disappointing, and Canadians
At least if you're going to stand up, say something of substance.
The honourable member from Calgary Forest Lawn.
The only thing they're cutting is moms that have to cut down on the nutritious food that they can give to their kids and sending them into food bank lines. And after this temporary tax trick is done, they're going to jack up the carbon tax on April the 1st, making everything more expensive. And anyone who doesn't believe in this Prime Minister's radical plan, he threatens them with consequences. This inflationary vote-buying scheme will add another $6 billion to this Prime Minister's growing deficit. Instead of taking chump change off chocolates, call a carbon tax election now so we can axe the tax for good.
That's right. No chump change off of the chocolates. We want to axe the tax.
Mr. Speaker,
Carbon tax.
GST that we are proposing to remove is going to be removed on essential items like groceries, like children's clothing, like diapers.
Oh, come on.
Seats.
If you're going to
Mr.
stand
Speaker,
up,
I don't
have
know
a voice.
if the honourable
Don't like
colleague
whisper.
has children, but if he did,
She's trying to bring down the whole
those items
house,
are for
is what she's trying to do.
And for Canadians who have to buy these essential items, this tax cut makes a difference, Mr. Speaker. I don't understand why
No, they're not going to make a difference. A little bit of GST off of, you're buying an item and you get like 6% off.
The honourable member from South Shore St. Margaret's, please. I will ask again the honourable member from South Shore St. Margaret's to please not
Brian, your vote.
unless recognized by the speaker.
Don't you see it? Who scissors? Did they buy your vote? The 250 and
the honourable member for
GST off.
The Prime Minister is desperately trying to create a distraction, Mr. Speaker. He's trying to trick voters with a 2-month tax trick.
Exactly.
But everyone can see through what he's doing.
We're not
Earlier
going to be
today,
tricked.
somebody came to my riding office to criticize what the Prime Minister is trying to do. This government is uniting Canadians against them, Mr. Speaker. Will they give Canadians election so that they can elect common sense Conservatives to give
want a
hope
carbon
back to
tax
Canadians?
election. That's what he didn't translate.
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Economic Development. Once again, Mr. Speaker, today is a great day, Mr. Speaker. Canadians across the country, Quebecers, are going to have access to a tax holiday. I don't understand how my colleague from across the way
because they're not going to vote for it.
Doesn't want to support Canadians. Their
push something decent.
Hidden program, Mr. Speaker, is to make cuts to housing, among other things, Mr. Speaker. It's very clear that they don't want to support
cut the tax on
Quebecers.
housing. On
they
new
don't
builds.
want them to have a tax cut at the toughest time of the year.
Not like a 250 cut on
the honourable member for Bellechasse, Levy.
Check, whatever, for Christmas.
Listen, Conservatives will cut taxes and axe the GST on new homes. That'll mean savings up to $50,000 on the purchase of a new home, and it'll create 30,000 new housing starts, Mr. Speaker. That's a real idea to bring a long-term solution to problems created by this government. Canadians are smart. They can see what's going on. They're going to pay the price for this government. That's why we need elections now, Mr. Speaker.
That's right. Axe the tax. Get a carbon tax election going here, boys.
Order.
I will ask the Leader of the Official Opposition, please, to sit down. The Honourable Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honestly, it's difficult to accept that question from the Conservative Party because in her province, in Quebec, we have signed an agreement with the province to build over 8,000 new affordable housing units with a major investment with $1.8
What is that, special treatment for Quebec?
That's a successful agreement that's in place
Probably.
now. The Conservative Party's position is to cut that agreement, to cut this program that's going to build affordable housing. That's not acceptable, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, because there's probably a special deal for Quebec or something like that you're not talking about. Like, come on.
The Honourable Member for Shepherd.
One incident
the
deal in there.
government tabled its bill on
What
the
does that
GST
do for me in Alberta?
and set aside the $250 checks that they promised to just about everyone except for seniors and except for those who are the most vulnerable. They should take this opportunity to take a step back and seriously ask themselves what their priorities are. This government is ready to spend $6 billion
buying votes. That's a priority at this moment.
But they're refusing to improve OAS for 65 to 74-year-old seniors. That would fix the injustice that they're suffering from right now, and it would cost 2 times less than this gift. Will they give royal sanction to C319 instead of trying to buy votes? The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Economic Development for the Regions. Mr. Speaker, all I'm seeing today is, you know, it's not vote buying. I want to make sure that Quebecers and Canadians have the opportunity to buy essential products during the holiday season. What I don't understand
is vote
how
buying.
the Bloc Québécois can't support
Why would you say it's not vote buying when I'm saying it is vote buying?
Quebecers, but also
it's obvious
seniors.
it's vote buying if
Mr.
you have
Speaker,
to actually
today I got an
substantiate
email
what you're doing by
from
saying
a
it's not vote
constituency.
buying.
The Bloc just lost my vote because I'm insulted by the way that they are blackmailing us. Order. The member for Shefford. Now, this is, you know, becoming a habit for this government, forgetting seniors. They're saying, look, we've done enough for them, so nothing else, too bad. But there are seniors who won't even be able to benefit from the GST holiday because all of their income is going to cover their basic needs. The government could act if they're able to give $250 to just about everyone, just to show how generous they are. Well, then they'd be able to spend $6 billion. And if they're able to spend $6 billion, to buy votes, well, they could invest $3 billion in OAS instead of giving money to lots of people who don't need it. Why not simply improve OAS? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Where was the Bloc when we increased pensions for seniors over 75? They voted against it. Where was the Bloc when we increased the guaranteed income supplement by 10%? And, that's, for the most vulnerable seniors. Where were they for the Canada Dental Program? They voted against seniors in all those cases, Mr. Speakers. Where was the Bloc? Well, they simply voted against all those measures.
Yeah, but a lot of those programs are like, they really, really tax people a lot.
Well, it's pretty clear what liberal values are. Giving money to a couple that makes $300,000 a year, but giving nothing to seniors. They think that that is fair. The Liberals said the Conservatives are marking political points by having no sense of social justice.
For some reason, they left
no
the seniors out of it.
For those who are having a hard time making
Liberals
ends meet.
don't
So
like
we should do
seniors.
the same thing. It must be working. If it works for them, it'll work for us. The government needs to get its values straight. On the one hand, there's their $250 check that no party here agrees with. And on the other side, there's C319, which would improve pensions for seniors, and all parties agree that it should be passed. Why aren't they making the right choice?
Because it's about vote buying.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. I would invite the Bloc Québécois to go speak to their constituents, to look them in the eyes, and every time they say that they want to increase pensions for seniors aged 64 to 75, but they should explain why they voted against all the measures for seniors in Quebec that we put in place. They didn't want the improved GIS. They didn't want the dental plan. They didn't want anything for seniors, Mr. Speaker. So they're saying one thing on the one hand, and they should say the same thing on the other hand.
Teach French and English in all schools across Canada to get around the problem. You know what I mean? Like, that's how easy it is to do.
Canadians with a 2-month tax trick. Small businesses are being forced and are scrambling to reprogram their point-of-sales machines and to find the time and money to pay for these changes. It is a shame the Minister of Small Business knew and did not care that this tax trick would hurt the very businesses she purports to help. We all know an election is coming. Can we simply stop with the desperation and call for a carbon tax election today?
Yeah, exactly, Rachel.
The Honourable Minister for Small Businesses.
Mr. Speaker, the only thing that member and his party can offer small businesses are slogans on repeat, cuts to programs that are essential, and cuts. So, Mr. Speaker, our tax break is not just good for small businesses.
I learned a little bit of French in school, but only in a course that I
This tax break isn't just helping families, it's also supporting
voluntarily. I didn't have to
community
take
and
it
boosting their neighborhood independent
for like 1 year.
grocery stores, restaurants, retailers, and small businesses that power our local economy. CRA has provided further guidance on this today, which will help support small businesses, and small businesses can call the CRA hotline to get further support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Bay of Quinte.
Mr. Speaker, 40% of Canada's economy is tied to our relationship and trade with the U.S. But after 9 years, we have no softwood lumber deal. And what's happened? Tariffs have doubled, and they're set to double again if we have a first increase but a second if Trump gets his way and we don't fix the border. After 9 years, Mr. Speaker, we have lost 90,000 jobs in softwood lumber, 40,000 each in Ontario, Quebec alone. The last Prime Minister solved this in 79 days. It's been 3,311 days. Where's the plan for softwood lumber?
Yeah, that's another thing. Our lumber here is being stymied by tariffs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we will always stand up for forestry workers and our lumber industry. We stood up for Canada when the U.S. imposed aluminum and steel tariffs on us. What did the Conservatives said? They urged us to back down and capitulate. When we renegotiated NAFTA back in 2018, we stood strong and protected Canada's economy, while the Conservatives asked us to capitulate. We have a proven track record when it comes to negotiating, Mr. Speaker. We will continue to protect Canadian workers and Canadian industry. Thank you.
You can't defund the police, otherwise you have chaos.
Member for Bay of Quinte.
Mr. Speaker, there's no Team Canada when the plan is to pile on taxes, make energy and production more expensive, and sideline our Canadian industry
team
on the
pile
global
on
stage.
Canada.
What kind of team has no game plan after 9 years, has lost 90,000 softwood lumber jobs, got kicked out of Kuzma negotiations, and sat on the sidelines when Mexico overcame Canada for the USA's #1 trading partner? But here's a Canada First plan. Axe the tax, scrap the cap on oil and gas production, and fix softwood lumber. Why doesn't the Prime Minister use that common sense Canada First plan?
Yeah, we want Canada first, not Team Canada.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for
Team
International
Canada is
Trade.
Trudeau.
Mr. Speaker, the U.S. is a very important partner to our economy and to our relationships with the rest of the world. When you talk about trade, we have $1.3 trillion of trade last year with the U.S., which is a record since we renegotiated NAFTA in 2018. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to be at the table with a Team Canada approach as we continue to protect Canadian businesses and workers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay,
The honourable member from Fort McMurray Cold Lake to please not take the floor unless recognized by the Speaker. The honourable member for Nunavut.
Okaktitiyi, 3 First Nations children have died since January due to this government's non-compliance with Jordan's Principle. The Liberals are actively fighting against the Human Rights Tribunal's orders and allowing First Nations children to die while in care. There are over 40,000 Jordan's Principle requests in the backlog. Liberals are not even trying to fix this. When will the Liberals stop fighting First Nations children and uphold First Nations rights to care?
The Honourable Parliamentary
Big problem there, by the sounds of it.
Mr. Speaker, we care deeply about First Nations children. Jordan's Principle ensures that First Nations children can access the care they need when they need it, regardless of where they live. Since 2016, the ISC has funded approximately 7.8 million products, services, and supports for First Nations children. The number of requests has grown exponentially over the years, and we're increasing funding so ISC can meet the demand. All governments need to do their part to keep First Nations children safe, healthy, and supported.
The honourable member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Possibly your
Here's the
cousin.
latest horrifying story involving the airline's mistreatment of people with disabilities. Air Canada failed to secure a brain cancer patient in a wheelchair. She fell out and was left bleeding and bruised. We're talking about a failure to protect people's safety and dignity. We're talking about a failure to uphold their basic human rights, and yet, despite dozens of stories like these, people with disabilities have seen zero action from this government. Either these Liberals don't think things in the air sector have gotten bad enough yet to act, or they simply don't care. Which
Big
one
ups.
is it?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for the question. Mr. Speaker, this government takes accessibility very seriously, ensuring that all passengers are treated with dignity. In May, for example, we had a summit that listened and learned from those that have accessibility issues And of course, recommendations came out of those meetings
He's the Liberal.
to ensure that we work with the airlines and, quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, demand that they address the issues as the member has brought forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good answer.
The honourable member for Humber Valley Black Creek.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I continue to hear a lot of noise from the members opposite about affordability, but no real solutions. Last week, our government made an exciting announcement to support Canadians over this holiday season. Would the minister share
More holiday season. $250 scam talk.
For Humber River Black Creek, can start from the top, please.
Oh, man.
Mr. Speaker, I continue to hear a lot of noise from the members opposite about affordability, but no real solution.
We just heard that.
Last week, the government made an exciting announcement to support Canadians over this holiday season.
What's that?
Would the minister share more details about our government's plan to put more money in the pockets of Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for
What's
Natural
she talking
Resources
about?
and Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the Honourable Member for the question. We know that
Made no sense
Canadians
at all.
need more support these days, and that is why we introduced the Canada Child Benefit, lifting hundreds of thousands of Canadian children out of poverty. We cut childcare
The Liberals
costs by
again
50% to help families,
with their
and we
benefit
cut taxes
program for
small
children
business.
that
And now
they're
we are
pushing
giving
like,
all
you know,
Canadians
oh, we
a
did
tax
this, we
break.
did this,
We're
pat on
limiting
our
the
back,
GST
pat on
on
our back.
essential
Okay,
goods
good.
for 2 months to support Canadians through the holidays. This means groceries, this means children's clothes, and more will be tax-free, so Canadians will have more money in their pockets.
Yeah, for 2
Conservatives
months.
oppose this just as they want to cut all kinds of supports for Canadians. While they play political games, we are working for Canadians.
No, what you're doing is giving a temporary 2-month
The Honourable Member
discount.
for Calgary
For
Shepherd.
God's sakes.
Canada's
And we're
3
sick
million
and tired of
temporary
this
migrants do not
bullshit.
appear poised to leave voluntarily. That's the headline from a major Canadian newspaper. The immigration minister naively expects that they'll leave voluntarily. Migrant advocates admit they have no such plans. This sets the stage for mass overstays and more illegal border crossings into the United States. This strains our relations with the newly elected U.S. administration, now threatening a 25% tariff if we don't secure our border.
Yeah.
What is the Prime Minister's plan to enforce the laws and ensure that people who need to leave do so?
Yeah. What happens is the terrorists come into Canada and then they go through the border to get into the States. That's what's
The
happening.
members opposite can get their facts straight.
We already
Floor
caught
around
a
numbers,
guy
3
there
million, 5 million.
in
They
the
actually don't
last
know what they're
past
talking
year.
about in response to their own order paper question.
That's what
I hear them
Trump
heckling
doesn't
people,
like,
but
to
who
see
they
the
really should be
terrorists getting
heckling is the
through.
leader of the opposition, who is pandering to all these groups, promising visas to everyone and not to deport anyone. That's not responsible. He really needs to grow up if he's going to be responsible. Thank you.
Hey, Seagull, yeah. No, that was funny. Well, I don't like to
Ask
fight.
the Honourable Member from Grand Prairie Mackenzie's, please not to
I'm
take
more
the
of a
floor unless
diplomat.
recognized by the Speaker. The Honourable Member from Calgary Shepherd.
Mr. Speaker,
But I wasn't getting
the
much
minister had
protection
no
from
answers
Rachel,
at committee
though.
when I asked him the same questions. He doesn't know his numbers because he has no plan. It's really simple. The lack of a plan threatens the integrity of our immigration system. It risks significant diplomatic damage with this newly incoming U.S. administration. Are they deploying more police to the border? They don't know. Are they deploying advanced technology and are they using it for border surveillance? They don't know. Are they going to use CBSA with more resources, more agents on the border? They don't know. YouTube videos aren't enough. Will the Prime Minister present a Made in Canada First plan that will make sure that everybody that's required to leave will actually do so?
Here, here, here. Well.
Order. Order.
Well, no, I want to hear them call for an election, you know, like a non-confidence vote. That's what we're waiting
The
for.
Honourable Parliamentary
The rest of
Secretary
it
to
is,
the
yeah,
Minister for
whatever
Public
rhetoric.
Safety.
Mr. Speaker, it seems the Conservatives are a little nervous about me responding, probably because I'm going to point out the fact that they cut over 1,000 jobs from CBSA. They were warned that their cuts would lead to more guns, more human trafficking, more drugs entering our border. But what did we do on this side of the House? We reversed those cuts. We invest in our police services. As a result, we've seen an increase of 600% more misrepresentation in investigations happening and a decrease of migrants entering the border through the south by 50% because investments work.
Ooh-wee. Yeah, well, there's still people crossing the border.
Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. hear how nervous I am, Mr. Speaker. Well, after 9 years of incompetence on immigration, the Prime Minister has no plan to protect our borders. Imagine only 2 days before President Trump's threats, 16 people were arrested trying to cross our border illegally, and many have also crossed into the U.S. since the beginning of 2024. What's the Prime Minister's plan to put Canadians first, protect our borders and our jobs?
Yeah, keep those terrorists out of Canada first.
The Honourable Minister of Global Affairs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is no more important relationship than that of Canada and the U.S. worldwide. And that's why we always have to invest more in this relationship when we know that Canadians want to make sure we protect their interests. And that's why, for us, the border is very important, as is security, as is for the Americans as well. I have been very involved recently, speaking with my counterparts, also with several U.S. senators. And of course, we do have a very good plan because it's in the interest of Canadians. The Honourable Member from Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, we're here because they have created chaos and disorder in our immigration system at the borders. After 9 years, it's clear this Prime Minister is too weak to face Donald Trump. In 2016, he opened up our borders to the world after promising the Canadian dream. All of these people have to go back to their homes. How will he ensure that none of them will immigrate illegally to the U.S.? There's no plan to protect our borders. When will he trigger an election so we can have a strong leader that will put Canada first? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we know full well we have to protect our border, and that's why, with the Biden administration in the past, we were able to conclude a safe third country agreement. We will also reach an agreement with the future U.S. administration. It's in our interest and in theirs, and this government's as well. We have this experience with the Trump administration. So rather than doing petty politics on the backs of Canadians, we're going to work together, and it's together we'll be able to.
You know, both countries, Canada and the U.S., we have a population problem where too many immigrants have come into the country. You know, you might say, well, you're going to lose people doing services if you deport people.
Gift to people who don't need it.
I think there's an excess of people.
Low-income seniors won't see a big difference, nor will minimum wage workers or families who receive Christmas baskets. But it does pay off for those who have reservations at top restaurants or buy their New Year's Eve champagne by the case. How can the Liberals and the NDP subsidize the spending of the rich while abandoning those who are tightening their belts?
Beer and wine
Christmas?
will be tax-free for 2 months. That's funny.
Minister of Tourism.
I want to make sure you get drunk so you don't have to remember it.
I'm a member in a riding where people often, at the end of the month, have to go buy their food at Dollarama. So when they minimize the impact of the measures we're taking today on the wallets of Canadians and Quebecers, it means they don't understand people who live in a very vulnerable way. We want to give them a break, a tax break.
Yeah, but you're not giving everyone a break, and that's
to have
unfair.
A better holiday season. And
if you're going to give Canadians a break and give $250, we'll give $250 to everyone, not just not him. We don't like that.
Food isn't taxed, so it's not a good example.
Selective.
The GST vacation also
That's not being equal.
Puts our SMEs at a disadvantage. Walmart and Best Buy don't mind paying to have their systems adapted and the GST removed, but our small businesses can afford to lose thousands of dollars in adaptation or go through the headache of sorting out which products are taxed and which aren't.
Yeah,
some have told us that it's more profitable to close for 2 months. It's not our small businesses that should have to pay the price when the Liberals and the NDP want to buy votes. Will they at least compensate SMEs?
More BS. Yeah, they're going to have to go through the store and go, this is tax, this isn't tax. You know how much work that is.
Mr. Speaker, this tax holiday will help many Canadians and also give small businesses a lift as well. Restaurants Canada has said this measure is a great victory for the restaurant industry, and it expects that our tax break will increase sales, which will bring in $1 million in additional revenue for restaurants. This tax break will help a greater number of people to go to small businesses, and which will
No,
boost
because
revenue
it's temporary. So
and our
you know how fast
economy.
2 months goes? Like, people don't buy that much stuff in a month anyway, so they're not going to save that much money.
Mr. Speaker, a new study from the Fraser Institute has shown that that violent and property crime rates in Canada are exceeding those in the United States. In 2014,
What about a big ticket
before
item
this
like a
Prime
car?
Minister
Eliminate
took
the tax
office,
on that.
crime rates were lowest. Now violent crime is up 43.8%, which is 14% higher than in the United States. Similarly, our property crime rates are up 27.5% higher than in the United States. When will this Prime Minister admit that he should abandon his failed soft on crime policies?
Property crime is primarily by the people that are living in tents.
For public safety.
While Conservatives use skewed data to talk down Canada, we're actually investing in the brave police who do this hard work every single day. And as a result of those investments,
you know what?
We're seeing massive
You know that Trudeau knelt with
in our
BLM
police
on the
services.
streets of
For
Canada,
example,
supporting
October 31st,
their
the RCMP announced the
policy
largest, most
of
sophisticated
reducing policing across Canada. BLM did that in Edmonton here. BLM got Edmonton to reduce dollars given to the police force.
Conservatives talk down Canada.
So Liberals were all in to the defunding the police.
Now that answer
So
would
it's funny that she
suggest
says, "Oh, we gave
that
money to
these
the police."
Statistics are all in our head. Yet the data clearly reveals that Canada has become a much more dangerous place under this Prime Minister. Since 2015, violent crime
You need a gun
is
to
up
walk the
50%,
streets.
and gun crime is up 116%.
Those are numbers.
Everyone needs a gun now.
Since that has happened, we have seen no urgency from this Prime Minister. Where is the urgency? When will he admit that his dangerous soft on crime policies has made Canada unsafe, and now Canadians are paying the price?
Yeah. And you don't put anyone in jail for crimes. You know, it's all
Mr. Speaker,
really
I think
soft.
it's safe to say we don't want to know what's in that member's head.
Criminals aren't
but
scared.
on this side of the House, we are actually investing in the RCMP.
Those that do go to jail go for a very short time period or none.
And as a result, we're seeing some of the largest drug and gun seizures in this country's history. Conservatives talk a
Hang
big
on.
game.
While the Liberals are in power, she's going, "We're seizing more drugs and guns than ever, and we're running the country." Oh, are you? Great.
What did that do? That brought in drugs and guns into our
Wonder
country.
why.
And conservatives
What are the guns and drugs doing in the country that you're seizing? How did they get here?
The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord.
All illegal
Mr.
across
Speaker?
the border. Come on.
Violent crime in Canada is over 14% higher than in the U.S.
That's
we learned
stupid.
this week in the media that a woman
Ultimate
had
stupidity
been kidnapped
to stand
and
up
strangled in
and bellyache
Abitibi.
about.
This government has abandoned victims, fully backed by the Bloc, who voted for C5, a law that allows violent criminals to serve their sentences in front
Shame
of
on the
Netflix. Bloc members will have to answer for their actions and explain why they've preferred to support criminals and rather than victims. When's the election? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, let's talk about investment. What we did on this side of the House is to invest to protect Canadians, including Quebecers. We invested in border services. We've invested in scanners to keep our borders safe, particularly at the Port of Montreal. The results are as follows.
Scanners.
What we saw in Quebec is
the ports aren't the problem.
42% in
It's
vehicle theft.
the rest of the border.
That's action
Roxham
to
Road,
fight crime,
for example.
to protect Canadians. Thank you. The honourable member for Dorval, Lachine, LaSalle. Mr. Speaker, our government believes that Canadians who work must benefit from support to allow them to face the rising cost of living. Last week, we announced the new Canadian Workers Rebate, which will provide a direct, tax-free benefit to millions of Canadians.
Woohoo.
Can the minister explain how this rebate will make a tangible difference in the lives of workers? Thank you. The The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. It's a great day for Canadians because we are announcing a tax break for the holiday season to help families and workers, Mr. Speaker.
It's Mr. Climate
to
Change.
buy food, go to restaurants, and buy children's clothing. It's
No,
incredible
get rid of
to
our
hear
climate change
the
carbon
Conservative
tax. Axe the
leader
tax.
force his members to vote against this measure, even
Axe
though
your tax.
2 years ago himself he was supporting this. It's so hypocritical. And you know, we call that in my area a big talker and a small
This guy
doer.
is a protester, by
The
the
honourable
way.
member for Dauphin, Swan River, Newport.
Turned politician.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday at committee, the Environment Minister recklessly promised to quadruple the carbon tax despite American tariffs that will cripple our
He's
economy.
the one that's given us the
He
tax.
gleefully stated, of course, we're going to continue with the carbon tax.
Yeah.
With 40% of our economy dependent on trade with the United
Get
States,
rid of that carbon
he should have
tax.
just said, of course,
That'll be the
I'm going to
failure.
kill
That's
our
what
economy.
caused the downfall
He's
of the
done it
Liberals,
before,
that
he'll
carbon
do it
tax.
again. Why is this minister so hell-bent on vandalizing Canada's economy?
Honourable
Down with
Minister
the
for
Liberals.
Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, because of carbon pricing in Canada, it's generating $25 billion of investment every year in our economy, Mr. Speaker. It's putting more money
Wow,
in the
25
pockets
billion?
of
What are you
8 out of
talking
10
about?
Canadians, and it's helping us reduce our emissions for the first time in our history. If it was up for the Conservative Party of Canada, they would let the planet burn,
Yeah, well,
Mr.
you don't need to
Speaker.
tax
They would bring
me
the economy
to
down. They would
have
let
something to
Canadian
do with
down.
some carbon
Not on this
emission
side of
from
the
some
House, Mr.
company
Speaker.
that
We're
I
there
don't
for
know anything
Canadians.
about.
We will fight
Like,
climate
that's
change.
got
We will
nothing to do
support
with
the
me.
economy.
You
We
want
will
to
create
tax
good jobs for
some
Canadians.
company, go right ahead, but don't tax me with any carbon tax.
The honourable
Any
member for
bullshit
Dauphin,
tax.
Swan River,
Throw him
Newport.
out.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister's radical environment minister is willing
He's
to
radical.
drive Canada's economy into the ground with no remorse.
Exactly.
The carbon tax will cost the Canadian economy $25 billion by 2030. In the face of 25% tariffs, the minister
shame.
can do something. He can cancel his planned quadrupling of the carbon tax. If the minister is unwilling to protect our economy, will the Prime Minister at least allow Canadians to protect our economy and call a carbon tax election?
That's right. Axe the tax, carbon tax election. Let's do it.
The honourable minister for
Call an election.
Order.
Non-confidence vote.
The honourable minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
The Conservative Party of Canada, when it comes to many things, including climate change, is extremely reckless. This is the party that's let the people of Jasper down, Mr. Speaker. For 4 consecutive years, they invested nothing to protect Jasper from forest fires from 2011 to 2015.
Hang on.
Zero
It's the
hectares
last
of
9
fire
years you've been looking
removal.
after
0
Jasper.
hectares of
You're
mechanical
responsible for
removals to
not
prevent
clearing
forest
out
fires.
that
They let Jasper
dead
down. Now
forest.
they want to let the
Don't
Canadians
give us
down
a
in the face
bullshit.
of climate change, not on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker.
You know, wow. That's reprehensible. 9 years. It burnt this year.
Order.
And he's blaming
The
the
honourable
previous
member from
power
Lakeland.
more than 9
9
years
years
ago
of
for the
economic
fire.
vandalism proves these NDP Liberals aren't worth the cost. The radical environment minister's own
Climate change
department now
bullshit.
admits their carbon tax will cut $25
Yeah, well, we're paying all this carbon
billion
tax.
from
Why
Canada's
did
economy in
Jasper
the next
burn?
6 years, but he doesn't care. He said they'll quadruple it anyway. Canadians already can't afford to eat or to heat, house, or
Bullshit.
drive themselves. So with the threat of 25% crushing tariffs on Canadian goods, will the Liberals finally put Canada first and axe the tax for all for good so Canadians can actually afford to live?
Yeah, exactly. Canada first. Let's go. Canada first. Will the Liberals do it? No.
The honourable minister for Natural Resources and
Thank you, Mr.
Energy.
Speaker. I'm honestly not sure how Canadians can give any credence to anything that member and those folks over there say. That member on the other side of the House ran on a platform that included putting a price on pollution. It is the height of hypocrisy. At the same time,
Yeah, well, times
she and
change,
her
you know.
colleagues are denying
At one point,
science
people
of
might say
climate
one
change,
thing and then they
are
change their mind.
condemning our children to
Maybe
a
you should
future
change
that
your
is a
mind, too.
terrible one indeed.
Get rid of
From
that
an
carbon
economic
tax.
perspective, they have no plan to build an economy that will actually create good jobs for our kids and our grandkids.
How about
It
decrease
is
taxes?
absolutely shameful, the positions that they take.
Yeah, all he did was point his finger. Didn't say
Colleagues.
anything.
colleagues. The honourable member from Scarborough Agincourt.
Mr. Speaker, last year we announced a $471 million federal investment in Toronto through the Housing Accelerator Fund to unlock nearly 12,000 new homes over the next 3 years and over 53,000 over the next decade. A few weeks ago, the Conservative leader announced his plan to shut down home building by making dangerous cuts to federal housing investments. People in my riding of Scarborough Agincourt can't afford these kinds of Conservative housing cuts. Can the Minister of Housing update the House on how he is solving the housing crisis?
Very strong. The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
I want to thank my colleague for her advocacy on behalf of the community that she represents. Mr. Speaker, we are putting billions of dollars on the table to help cities cut red tape, to change their zoning practices.
I'm going to ask the honourable member, please, from Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou, to please not participate. He's not recognized by the chair. I'm going to ask the honourable minister to start from the top.
We know that it takes investments if we're going to solve the housing crisis. We put billions of dollars on the table to help communities cut red tape, to change their zoning practices, to speed up permitting so they can build more homes faster. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative response to this program, which is helping construction go up and rents come down, is to advocate for cuts to communities, including cuts in communities represented by 68 Conservative members of Parliament. We are going to put money on the table to help cities build homes more quickly. It is a shame that Conservative members of Parliament won't even stand up for the communities that they represent to get their fair share of this important funding.
The honourable member from South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, the government's massive public sector pension plan surplus is so large that by law they have to draw on it. This surplus was created by contributions from both the employer and workers. Yet the Liberals continue to leave workers out and follow the former Conservative two-tier pension plan, which forces 100,000 public service employees to work for 5 years longer than their colleagues. When will the Liberals reverse this regressive plan and treat all workers fairly?
Good to see it. Troy's in there. Newfie Princess.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, we obviously recognize the very important work done by the Federal Public Service. We want to make sure that we look into this matter very carefully as to where this money goes. It will go into the general accounts for the moment. We'll be discussing this with different parts of the government, including the unions, and we will come to the right decision. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good job.
The honourable member from Saanich, Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to raise with the Minister of Justice Bill C-63. We finally see some movement. It's gone for pre-study to committee.
She's from the
Legal
Green
groups that have
Party.
Looked at this. Many people have reached me that this four-part
Elizabeth
bill
May.
will help protect children from sexual predation online. If we look at parts 1 and
She's
4,
an alcoholic
where we
too,
have
I
large
think.
degrees
She
of
likes drinking.
consensus, parts 2 and 3 remain problematic. But can the minister tell us what will he do to improve and expedite passage of this bill to protect our children and other vulnerable people from online sexual predators?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
I thank the member from Saanich Gulf Islands, who's often acts as the
Rachel's
conscience of
Ghost,
this chamber.
you know.
What I would do is simply appeal to all parliamentarians. The
There's a famous
issue
clip
of
of
protecting
her on
kids
stage
from child sex
drunk.
predators should not be a partisan issue. Getting this bill into committee is of paramount importance for all of us who want to combat online sex predation. People who
And
would
she's saying that
take
there's a
vulnerable
terrorist
children
that's
and spread
more,
revenge porn
whatever,
about them.
better
if we
than
all could just simply listen
Parliament.
to Amanda Todd's mother, to Rehtaeh Parsons' mother, we can get behind this bill, get it to committee, get it off to the Senate, and protect children. That's what Bill C-63 is about. I hope everyone in this chamber can support it.
This brings us to the end of the period provided for oral questions. Now it's time for the week.
Oh, so that's it for the big shoe here today. That's interesting. So, what did you think of that? As far as I'm concerned, I thought that there would be some action, like more action, like honestly. should have seen, it's like a call for an election or something like that, or a non-confidence vote actually is what might have driven a call to an election. But we didn't see that, so unfortunately it didn't work out. So, yeah. But anyways, that's it for my feed here today. I think I'm going to just drop it here for a bit, and we'll see if we come back here, after a bit. But anyways, thanks a lot for joining us on the Tommy Temper Show. Oh, hang on a second. I have an actual song. My show has a song now. Where is it here? I'll find it, and we'll actually play the Tommy Temper song. Okay, here it is. There you go. Hey, this is just for you. Chat.
Tommy Temper runs the show. Got a cyber fan, they're swooning about the convoy sight. Watch the blue wrench wield its might.
Right on, Fry will be streaming.
Hit the battle face delay. Complaining you might get timed. Better watch out for the prime.
It's in the cyberspace. We don't like the haters. Yeah, later. Thanks a lot for popping in.
In this virtual frontier, Tommy's crew with hearts so bold. In this saga now retold.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. So anyways, it was a pretty good feed there, but it was a usual thing where the Conservatives were hammering them, saying, look, we don't want your $250 and 2-month, suspension of GST, the tax, which is like a 6% tax. So, it's like, yeah, a little bit of money in your pocket, but not a whole bunch, So think of 6% on what you might buy, only on those select items, though, like food and, toys and some things like that. But otherwise, what the Conservatives have planned is to, quote, axe the tax, right, which is this big carbon tax, which the carbon tax, I think when it gets to the next tier and they do their next edition, it'll be getting close. It's over $2 a gallon just for the tax, between $2 and $2.50 a gallon for the carbon tax, which is abhorrent. It's like, no, I don't know any other country that has come up with an asinine program like this, implemented it and is collecting it and has citizens that are happy with it. It's not a good thing. And it's not just on fuel that you put in your vehicle, but it's on heating fuel that you use. For example, I personally use natural gas to heat the house here. So I actually pay carbon tax for heating, to turn up the furnace. So now what do? You go, carbon tax, I'm going to have to keep the furnace turned down. So people wonder, why do I have a house coat on or a coat or something like that? Yeah, because it's cold here, because I keep the temperature down and keep the fireplace turned on or whatever, close to where I'm at here, and everything else cooler in the house or whatever. People are going to do stuff. They're not going to buy the food that they used to. They're going to do all kinds of things because they don't have as much money because of this carbon tax. And the carbon tax does get added on to anything that gets transported, right? Because think about it. The guy that transports has to pay carbon tax for his fuel to transport the goods from point A to B. Everything gets transported from point A to point B that we buy, other than this being a service, some guy coming to your house and, whatever, mowing your lawn. But you know what I mean? It doesn't have anything to do with me, and I'm not talking about myself, but what I would like to see is a better life for everybody, whether you have a lot of money or you don't have a lot of money. It's irrelevant. What I'm out for, and my whole line of thinking, is everyone deserves the very best life, right? So regardless of who you are, don't you deserve to be taxed the least and to have the most money in your pocket for spending? And the carbon tax does not do that. What it does is it takes money out of your pocket, gives it to the government, and what are they spending it on? You don't even know what they're spending it on. When you ask the government, what's this carbon tax being spent for? You don't know. It's in some kind of a fund, whatever, and for all we know, the government is going to go someday, oh, well, we're poor, we're broke, we're in debt. Well, let's just use that carbon tax money for whatever the hell we want, right? Taxation is theft, in the first place. It's all garbage, and we're all being taken advantage of, and it's a sad, sad thing. Really, really sad. It's so sad that I think we'll amp it up a little bit.
Tommy temper, mountain fire, blue wrench power, never tired. Time out, cyber, family glare, celebrity, big time everywhere. Super chat lights up the night. Trolls come in like they're in flight. Drown the heart with voices loud. Screaming women in the crowd. Cool down, it's just a scream. Grab a brain like you've never seen. Common sense is out of place in this wild and crazy space. Silent whispers turn to roars. Egos clashing in the boards. Digital battlegrounds ignite. Who's wrong and who's so right?
You.
Click the link, join the stage. Rage flows through every page.
I like this version, kind of.
Words collide. Truth and folly side by side. Cool down, it's just a screen. Grab a brain like you've never seen.
Yeah. Son, honey. Exactly.
Crazy space. Cool down, it's just a screen. Grab a brain like you've never seen. Common sense is out of place in this wild and crazy space. Crazy space.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that was version 2 of the Tommy Temper song. So there you go. There's two different versions of the same thing. Hey, but anyways, I enjoyed that. That was fun. Thanks a lot. We dropped a few links there from a few people. Hopefully you sub to a couple of people there. And we can, figure out what to do here for the next time. But thanks a lot for your company. It was great watching the show there. And maybe we'll call an election the next time. Who knows? But otherwise, catch y'all later. Later, alligator. As we saunter off into the sunset.